What is the first game that comes to mind when you hear RTS? Do you think of StarCraft 2? What about Age of Empires? Or how about Company of Heroes?
Engineer unit lost.
Well, how about this one?
Standing at attention. Defenders of peace.
Confused? This is a game called Left Behind Eternal Forces, which takes place in a post-Rapture New York in which you must take control of those who were left behind to fight against the Antichrist. And apparently, this game is considered to be one of the most controversial RTS games. And for today's video, I'll be seeing why it was so controversial and I'll be playing it at the same time to see if they are true. But first, we're gonna have to start at the beginning. Left Behind Eternal Forces was created by Inspire Media Entertainment, or they're also called Left Behind Games, and the company was founded in October 2001 by Troy Allen Linden. The reason he founded the company was to make a game based on the books of the Left Behind series, which takes place after the Rapture. Now, if you don't know what the Rapture is a Christian belief in which both the living and dead are lifted up into heaven, but only the Christian believers are allowed into heaven, and the rest are left behind awaiting for the second coming of Christ. Now, for Troy Linden, he has a history on working on games. He was a production assistant for NHL 1991 and was one of the first ones to start the John Madden series, so he has a pretty good experience in making games. Troy Linden's other goal for the company was to make a network for 3,000 churches to generate revenue of around 50 games a year, or make 50 games a year. I'm not sure what this means, but Troy Linden wanted a revenue of $3 million a year so they can provide a healthy alternative of games for parents so they can get for the children. But that didn't happen because the company closed down in 2011. Now, Left Behind was released in October 2006 and was Inspire Media Entertainment's first game, and over the years made 3 sequels for it. Inspire Media Entertainment also made other Bible games. All these games are all heavily advertised for Christian gamers. Now, I don't even thought this was a good idea, but why would they do this? I don't know. Some of you might think Bible games are weird, but a lot of these games were popular back in the NES and Sega Genesis times, and they were all made by Wisdom Tree. Although most of these Bible games are all mediocre ripoffs, and all of them were unlicensed by Nintendo. Hell, even Konami made a Bible game, but that's a story for another time. Now, before the game was released, it started to get controversy as one article called it the GTA for Rick Sanatorium, and that it's the Resident Evil for the family association types who eat too much big game hunter meat and who have never had sex. I find this really weird because it's a strategy game and GTA and Resident Evil are totally different game genres, but okay. Even the infamous Jack Thompson joined in on the fun, saying that the game promotes a convert or die mechanic and goes against the Bible. Now, if you don't know who Jack Thompson is, he was a famous person trying to ban the GTA series and the original Doom, and did a lot of campaigns trying to ban violent video games overall. I still think he's advocating against video games today, but I'm not sure. There was also even a Fox News segment on this game, which I'll have linked in the description if you want to see it. Even atheists joined in on the bandwagon, claiming that the game promotes religious violence, and a bunch of Christian groups started to boycott this game, claiming the same thing the atheists and Jack Thompson said, and also wrote petitions to get the game off the stores, including Walmart and other retailers. Just imagine going into Walmart or any game store and seeing this game on the shelf, and when you go to pick it up and start looking at the front and back cover of the game, you'll probably think to yourself, why and who in the hell would someone make a game based on the Left Behind book series? I find this very funny because this game sold around the same year that a Lord of the Rings strategy game came out, and a Warhammer 40k expansion game came out, and also a Star Wars game came out. But the controversy must have paid off, because you know when something media related is very controversial, it is typically advertised to not go out and buy it, but it usually has the opposite effect of people actually going out and buying the game. So Left Behind made around $2 million in 2006, which was their last report, but I'm pretty sure they made a decent profit off of it, considering the fact that there was 3 sequels that came out, and they later signed a deal with Big Huge Games, the creators of Rise of Nations, to use their engine for their sequels. But the game did cost around $3 to $5 million to make, and that's not including advertisements, which is very expensive for this size of studio. Also, an extra note, in 2007 there was supposed to be a care package program that would have included this game, and it would have been delivered to soldiers in Iraq, but that didn't happen because the game got a lot of flack for its controversy. This reminds me of that one Family Guy joke where Lois donates a coffee to a soldier.
Hey, some random video game company donated a Bible game. Do you want it?
What?
Now, for the actual game reviews, IGN gave it a 59 out of 100, citing that the interface was more of the problem. Metacritic, it stands on a 38, with each critic review varying from different issues on the game. But I will be playing the game to see if the controversy was right and if the video game critics were correct about the game. When you first start at the game, it shows a cool cinematic of all the souls leaving the earth and going into heaven. At first I thought this was the game intro, but it's just an intro for the company. Still, it's a cool cinematic, but the actual game intro is just meh. It first starts up with the famous painting of Adam's creation and 2 angels lifting someone into heaven. Then it starts to be narrated.
Throughout history, men and women have chosen one of 3 paths. Those who daily seek a personal relationship with God, unbelievers and believers who don't seek after God, and those who choose to ignore God. And as the prophets foretold, God will come to take his people home. No one knows the day or the hour. Without any warning, all infants, children, and many people mysteriously disappear. Terror and confusion reign the world over. For those left behind, the apocalypse has just begun.
By the way, the intro is the same as the trailer, and in the intro it doesn't show any game footage or a cool cinematic of the Rapture happening. It just tells you that the Rapture is happening. Also, the narration was done by Chris Faby, and he does the whole narration for the whole game. He was best known for being an announcer for the Love Worth Finding radio program, which was founded by Dr. Adrian Rogers, a Baptist pastor. If you compare this intro to a different game like Universal at War, it shows a cool cinematic of an alien invasion happening. But anyways, back to the game. So when you first get into the game, you always check the controls, but the controls in this game are weird. In order to move the camera, you have to use the keypad. I have never heard of any game that uses the keypad to move. In any other strategy game, you're used to using WASD or the arrow keys to move the camera. But the arrow keys in this game are only used to rotating the camera, and WASD does nothing. So half the time when I was playing the game, I forgot that I need to use the keypad to move, and out of instinct I just used WASD and the arrow keys. Then I realized those keys don't move the camera, and most of the time I kept getting confused. But thank God that you can use the mouse to move. But moving the camera up and down and rotating can get a little disorienting. I don't know what it has to do with my mouse, but it moves too much. Also, I wouldn't expect this in a game, but there's a left-handed mouse option, which surprised me because I don't think a lot of games around this era didn't have a left-handed mouse option. That's a nice addition, even though I'm right-handed. So I can guess that you guys already know that this isn't your ordinary strategy game. Guess how you recruit units in this game. You need to have a disciple in order to get more units, and by getting more units, you need to convert them. Converting neutral units is only unique to disciples, but when you go to click it, it doesn't show an icon that you have selected the ability, and this goes for all units' abilities because each unit has its own unique ability. Because each unit has its own unique ability, but at least there's an auto feature for it. But once you convert a person, they're just a regular person. And what I mean by this is that this unit is not special. It has no abilities. In order for them to be a proper unit, you have to train them. For example, if you want a builder, you have to send them to a camp and train them. After that, you get your builder. But in order to get a camp, you need another person that you converted to enter a building. Another cool feature in the game is that if you press Ctrl and F, you can find your units, which is a nice addition because the map can get very confusing. With your builder, you can acquire buildings and remodel them into specific building types. But first, you need money. And to get money, you need a bank. In order to get a bank, you need to acquire a building. But it can't be any building. It has to be a specific building they need to remodel. And the same goes for every building type. And the only way to see a specific building type is to hold H. And the worst part is you can't toggle it. You have to hold it. Okay, first off, why would you need money? If the Rapture happened and the apocalypse is happening, how has the government not collapsed, or in fact society overall? And also too, why do we need money to build a church if it says in the Bible that money is the root of all problems? I understand food and spirit resource, but money? They should have just replaced it with manpower or some faith-based related resource, or even go back to gold or silver. So much for being a Bible game. But anyways, in order to get food, you need to build a cafe. To get military units, you need to build a barracks. And increase your unit cap, you need a house. But again, they have to be specific buildings. Another important building type you need is a church. You need the church to train disciples and musicians. Musicians can use their special ability to convert enemies into neutral units, and then you can convert them. What's also weird about this game is that every unit has its own life story. I mean, we didn't need it, but that's a weird addition. Oh, and I forgot to say, you need to have your units pray, because if you don't, they turn back to neutral. And if they turn neutral, you have to reconvert them and retrain them. Also, don't lower your spirit meter, because if you do, I think it's game over. But the only way to lower is by killing units, or not having them pray. Overall, the convert or die mechanics that was talked about in the news is not true. Although, you can kill enemy units, but you still can convert them by just using a musician that's recruited in the church, and by using their ability they can turn evil units into neutral units and be turned to your side. So the game discourages killing units, it just wants you to try to be peaceful. Now, onto the story. When you first start the campaign, it starts with a live action segment. At first I thought this was from the Left Behind movie, but it's not, it's its own thing. I was surprised because having a live action segment is really expensive. I know the Red Alert series and Command & Conquer series do this, but they have a higher budget. Now I know where they spend most of their budget on. It would have been more cool if it was rendered using game footage. It just basically shows the Rapture and then 18 months pass so we get introduced to the Antichrist, who leads the global community, which was formerly the UN, so the UN is the bad guys. It seems like the global community is just some generic evil faction that's just trying to unite the world. Then we see the Tribunal forces, or the faction controlling, some of the members get gunned down. Well, that's one way to start a campaign. By the way, I couldn't finish the campaign. This was due to a glitch right at the end of the 4th mission, which will forever load, and I tried everything to fix it. I tried waiting and that didn't work. I feel bad because I'm not getting the whole game experience, but I'll just summarize the 4 missions I played. In the first mission, you just guide one unit to the one point of the map and to the end. For the second mission, you do the same thing, but this time you just convert units and make sure they don't go back to neutral. On the third mission, which I had a very tough time on, you have to defend a chapel and protect your hero units. And later on the mission, you have to guide them around areas around the map. The 3 reasons I had a tough time on this mission was that the hero units look the same as the regular units. It's just that their names are different. So half the time I would would get a game over and I would get confused because one of the units was a hero unit and would die suddenly. The second reason was that I had to defend the church since it was a primary objective. But at one point I forgot to defend it, so I thought I failed the mission, but I didn't. You really don't have to defend the church. You can just let it get destroyed and it won't fail the mission. I have no clue why they would have a primary objective since it would be considered a secondary objective. The third reason was that I couldn't kill any enemy unit or else I would have failed the mission, and they always kept spawning around the map. So this mission took me a lot of tries to figure it out. For the fourth mission, I had to make a certain amount of units so I can send them around the map, and I had to defend them for 20 minutes, and this mission was the most boring one. Actually, the whole game was just boring. It's just one map, which is just New York with some parts of the map cut out. Some of the units like the tanks and Humvees have no sound and no animation. They're just sliding across the roads. Even when they shoot, there is no sound. Also too, the song just loops while playing the game. It changes whenever you kill a unit, but only slightly. Another stupid thing about this game, in order to play the next mission, you have to exit to the main menu in order to start the next mission. And most of the time, the game will get stuck on the infinite loading screen, so I would have to hard crash the game in order to play the next mission. I don't know what it has to do with my modern hardware that's causing the game to crash, but let's check out the other modes. Now there is no skirmish, but there is a multiplayer mode, but the servers are gone because GameSpy went out of business in 2013. But in this mode, you could play the Antichrist, which is just basically the opposite unit of the Tribune forces. Also, this mode was also talked about in the news because Christian groups got mad that you could play the Antichrist. It's not fair to judge this game since I haven't fully played it and gotten a full experience, but my final verdict of this game is a 6 out of 10. It's just like a mediocre game. It's not that much exciting. With the weird controls, same map, and camera trickles, it doesn't do it for me. But I will probably change it if I find a way to fix the game's campaign infinite loading glitch. But as of right now, it's a 6 out of 10. Overall, the concept of the game is not a bad idea, it's just how they execute it, because a game based on the Rapture does sound like a good idea. As for a strategy game, the way I would have done it was that have the people that were left behind fight against the legions of hell, and have the campaign of the people trying to survive and show their struggles. And right at the end, you could end it at a cliffhanger of Jesus Christ coming down with his legions of angels. Because if you take out all of the religious aspects out of this game, it would just be a generic RTS game of humans fighting each other. Also, I think the reason this game got a low score in reviews was that the religious aspects were too much in their face, and a lot of people don't like that. Or also too, it could be the game it chose. Well, I don't know. But hey, if you like this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you want more content like this. And I hope you guys have a great day. This is Mazer, signing off.